There is no rule Israel did not break. There is no red line Israel did not cross. And it is yet to be held accountable for any of it.
Today we are discussing the humanitarian situation in Gaza, while Israeli civilians are being targeted daily by those who seek our destruction.
That is not war. I repeat, this is not war. These are crimes. This is genocide. They must be stopped, and they must be stopped now.
We have been clear time and time again. Hamas must release their hostages immediately and unconditionally and lay down their arms. If any of you truly wish to see change, join us in these demands.
Israel has declared an all-out war against the Palestinian people, and its attacks against the UN are an integral part of this war.
Hamas uses the supplies to feed their terror machine. Hamas's exploitation of international goodwill is not new, but the scale of their corruption and violence against their own people is staggering.
Silence and inaction are not an option.
The real issue is Hamas.
Madam President, the genocide is underway in the Gaza Strip. Israel feels more emboldened than ever, and the Palestinian people and the Lebanese people are paying with their lives the price of this impunity. There is no rule Israel did not break. There is no red line Israel did not cross. And it is yet to be held accountable for any of it. It is this impunity, while committing atrocities, that explains Israel's latest plan to achieve what has been its goal all along. We warned since the first days of the Israeli assault that its goal was forcible displacement of the Palestinian people and annexation of the Palestinian territory. What we are seeing in northern Gaza is exactly that. 400,000 Palestinians besieged and bombed and starved, left with a choice: to stay in the north and die in the bombings or from starvation, or leave to face death elsewhere. The so-called general's plan, Israeli general's plan, is in motion. Any Palestinian that stays in the north is considered a legitimate military target. All are hostages and bargaining chips. That is not war. I repeat, this is not war. These are crimes. This is genocide. They must be stopped, and they must be stopped now. Madam President, Israel is repeating the same pattern over and over again. Deny protected status to all those that international law were enacted to protect, notably civilians, including children and humanitarians. Deny humanitarian aid, including the most vital for the survival of the population. Destroy all civilian infrastructure and all conditions of life. Displace the population over and over and over again, while making sure they have nowhere to go and that anywhere and everywhere they go, they are not safe. Kill at will and explain that it is never your fault. Madam President, Look at what Israel did with UNIFIL. We told you to leave. If you stay, you can be attacked. Outrageous argument, and yet that is what happened repeatedly. And that is what the Israeli Prime Minister and war criminal said himself. So if they can use this argument against a UN force deployed and mandated by this council, what chance do Palestinian and now Lebanese civilians stand when faced with the same logic? Leave or turn into a legitimate military target. Leave or die, and very often leave and die. Israel has declared an all-out war against the Palestinian people, and its attacks against the UN are an integral part of this war. To destroy the conditions of life in Gaza, Israel needs to make sure no one can help restore them, even minimally. Israel's attack against UNRWA is part of its assault against the Palestinian refugees it serves and the Palestinian civilian population it is trying to help survive. It is genocide. Cold-blooded, planned, and executed genocide for the perpetrators. Burning, terrifying, harrowing genocide for the victims. What is happening in northern Gaza now is another level of monstrosity. Silence and inaction are not an option. Are you ready to proclaim that while Palestinians refuse to surrender, even when faced with collective capital punishment, this council decided to surrender? We know that many members around this table refuse to do so, and we count on them today to fight back with the tools provided by the Charter and by the law to combat those who are obliterating the Charter and the law. This is the responsibility of the Council and of each and every state around the world. The matter is straightforward, plain and simple. The massacres have to stop. Ceasefire now. No delay and no condition. And life-saving assistance must immediately reach the civilian population in Gaza, notably northern Gaza. No delay and no excuses. The measure of our success is the lives we save.
Thank you, Madam President. 376 days since the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. For 376 days, 101 human beings, men, women, children, elderly, have been tormented by Hamas terrorists in their terror dungeons. Over the weekend, another brutal assault struck Israel. A Hezbollah drone attacked the northern city of Binyamina, leaving over 60 injured and claiming the lives of 4 of our bravest heroes. Just days later, on Tuesday, a terrorist opened fire on a crowd of civilians near Yavne, in the center of Israel, murdering a police officer and injuring 4 others. It was only through the heroic actions of an armed civilian nearby that this did not become a massacre on an unimaginable scale. While we confronted terrorists on the ground, Hezbollah launched 320 missiles and drones on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish people, hitting a nursing home in central Israel in the city of Herzliya. Today we are discussing the humanitarian situation in Gaza, while Israeli civilians are being targeted daily by those who seek our destruction. The Council has managed to convene just a single session on our hostages in 376 days, a small gesture considering the suffering and loss we continue to endure. And still, so many Council members barely mention the hostages as an afterthought, if at all. Hirsch Goldberg, Pauline's mother, Rachel, spoke of the conditions they found their son, along with the 5 other hostages who were executed by Hamas with bullets to the back of their head. She revealed that, and I quote, "He had bullet wounds in his shoulder, neck, and back of the head. He was found collapsed on his knees with 24-year-old hostage Eden Yerushalmi leaning on his lap. Throughout the tunnel were bottles filled with very dark urine, an airless, completely pitch-black tunnel with no plumbing. We have been clear time and time again. Hamas must release their hostages immediately and unconditionally and lay down their arms. If any of you truly wish to see change, join us in these demands. To those who believe there is no more work to be done to protect civilians from murderous terrorists in Gaza, you are sorely mistaken. Only days ago, our forces discovered an arsenal of weapons and explosives inside an UNRWA clinic. Cloaked in the blue flag of the UN, terrorists have seized this facility, using it as a weapons store and a launch site. How many times have we warned of UNRWA Gaza's infiltration by Hamas? How many months have passed since we provided a list of hundreds of names of Hamas terrorists employed by UNRWA? No reply. Colleagues, while we confront the ongoing threat in Gaza, along with the 6 other fronts from which we are continually attacked, our humanitarian efforts remained as comprehensive as ever. Just days ago, we successfully transferred patients and staff from a hospital in Jabalia to another facility in coordination with the Red Cross and the UN. In recent days, we have transferred 70,000 liters of fuel to hospitals and facilitated 800 blood transfusions. 14 field hospitals have been established in Gaza, and 30,000 tons of medicine and supplies have entered. As always, we acted in accordance with international law, going above and beyond our obligations. We remain committed to facilitating humanitarian aid, especially in the medical field, despite Hamas's efforts to embed themselves among medical staff and patients. And I encourage you to look online. You can see the videos where Hamas actually disguise themselves to be UN employees. You can see them putting the vest, the helmets. Council members, Israel has flooded Gaza with as much aid as possible. Humanitarian aid trucks continue to enter Gaza, and we appreciate our international partners for their assistance. With hundreds of aid trucks waiting to be distributed inside Gaza, while others are hijacked and diverted by Hamas, this session has entirely missed the real issue at hand. The issue in Gaza is not a lack of aid. More than enough aid has entered to sustain every civilian in Gaza, with over 1 million tons delivered since the war began. Yet, the challenges continue. Yes, we admit that. And it's not due to Israel's efforts or failure to deliver humanitarian assistance. The real issue is Hamas. This terrorist organization has hijacked the aid, seizing it for their own purposes. They steal, they store, and even sell the aid that is intended for Gaza's civilians, turning humanitarian relief into a profit machine. Instead of feeding the hungry or caring for the sick, Hamas uses the supplies to feed their terror machine. Hamas's exploitation of international goodwill is not new, but the scale of their corruption and violence against their own people is staggering. Aid that should be in the hands of families in need is instead being funneled into the pockets of terrorists, with supplies either stored in secret caches or sold on the black market to enrich their leaders. Hamas has favored their terrorists over the civilians they claim to defend, choosing to sustain their terrorist activities while leaving the people of Gaza to fend for themselves. Israel, along with our international partners, continue to flood Gaza with aid, but it will never reach all those in need as long as Hamas remains in power. Hamas has weaponized the humanitarian situation, exploiting every opportunity to strengthen their hold while their own people suffer. This makes it incredibly difficult to ensure that the aid reaches its intended recipients. And I know you all spoke about Israel, but you can speak maybe after in the consultation about the challenges, what happens to the trucks after they enter Gaza, where they try to reach the destinations, the storage areas. Israel remains committed to working with our partners to deliver humanitarian assistance, even under these dangerous and morally reprehensible conditions. As I've said before, it is far easier to criticize the democratic nation defending itself than to hold the terrorists accountable. But what is easy is rarely right. Hamas moves through evacuation routes, hides in humanitarian zones, and uses civilians as human shields. Madam President, I envision a future Gaza, one where aid reaches those it is intended for, where humanitarian agencies are not fronts for terrorists, and where the people of Gaza can live without fear of Hamas. I know that many Council members share this vision, but it cannot be realized with Hamas in power. We will not wait for another October 7. We will not wait while Hamas plots our destruction. We will act, and we will act with the principles and morals that guide our nation.